Hi everybody and welcome to the Betway SA Rugby British Lions Tour. I've got Scott Gibbs. Scott, welcome. And Mark Keohane, the nemesis. Lions versus the Lions. What did you think, Scott? I mean, from my point of view, it was a lovely game. Lions looked impressive.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, because I think given the context of how they've all come together, kind of 75% of the Lions squad got together 2 weeks ago, so they've had little under 2 weeks of kind of preparation, and then 3 or 4 days acclimating to Johannesburg. So with all that in mind, I thought it was a very I liked the shape. I liked where the Lions, the way they looked to play. And I think that's one of the hardest things to engineer in such a short space of time, because you have to kind of suppress all the excitement and or anxiety by all of the teams, all of the individuals on the team sheet. You have to get them together. They clearly buy into this is a mandate that we want to take forward into this test series. This is how we want to play. We have to play as a team together. Everyone achieves more, and I thought they achieved that. But they looked very comfortable. If I looked at the body language of all the combinations, I thought that was a side that was in harmony, in unison, looked very comfortable. Didn't seem under pressure at all. And actually, technically, I thought they were very good. You know, they were the low at ruck. The defense was pretty good. I didn't see much from a counter-attack perspective, but certainly in phase play, they look comfortable. The only caveat I would say was, for me, the disappointment with a small D was Finn Russell. And we read how much of a maverick that everybody thinks he is going into this game, and whether Gatland had sat him down and said, listen, this is how I want you to play. Clearly, if you're going to be successful in a test series, you have to have 10s that know their craft, who know how to peg a team backwards, create pressure, and by that put the opposition under some distress by putting them under pressure. With your tactical game, I thought he kicked unintelligently, and it was too laissez-faire. And for me, I was just a little bit taken back that, knowing that there was this first outing, this first couple of kicks, nothing was on point. And I think when you have that tag of being a very mercurial player, you have to deliver with these little nuances of skill. So that was the only little disappointment, I say, with a small D. But some standout, notable performances from the Lions. They looked every inch test players: Courtney Laws, Hamish Watcher. And I mentioned Hamish because clearly, the greatest compliment you can pay any player is the fact is you can look and you can say to someone, I love watching you play, and I actually do love watching him play. And I think his stature is going to be of huge advantage going into this type of test series when you're up against very, very vertically challenged kind of opposition. And if you mention Esther Beth, Peter Steph Dutoy, guys that are 6'8", 6'9", it's very difficult for them to get low and make an impact in those kind of collisions. You know that they'll put themselves about, there's no doubt about that. But for someone of Watson's stature, he kind of makes easy meat of that and bounces out and spins out and creates great opportunity for presenting quick balls. So a lot of really positive performances.
Do you think, sorry Kev, do you think he's done enough to crack the testing? Because my understanding was that he's not necessarily a certain to start in that, what's the balance of that back row? So we see the one that's playing against the Sharks. It's two of the three. It's what everyone in England's been calling for, which is Curry and Sam Simmons together. But you look at individually, there are so many wonderful loose forwards in that Lions squad. What is the balance of the trio that you think he would be looking at, knowing how Gatland coaches leading up to their first test?
But that is the classic selection engineering that we will see evolve as this tour goes forward, because we need to see that a range of balance over, certainly in game 2, game 3, game 4, as we lead into that kind of Stormers game where essentially it would be 85, 90% maybe a test team kind of hit out. So, and that's the wonderful thing about going on the Lions tour, is that, you know, you were there supporting every one of your teammates in the early hitouts, because you know you want to get a feel for where you are, what your performance is about, and also you want to, you know, when you carry some encouragement to your teammates when they put the jersey on. Certainly in the first 2 or 3 games, I wouldn't totally disagree with you. But the one caveat I will think is that Tom Curry comes into this tour with a kind of torn pectoral muscle, and clearly that is an area of where his strength lies, in his combative nature and his ability to be over the ball. And if that makes him a slightly ineffectual, there could be a weakness, certainly. But I mean, I know that there's a lot of political lobbying about him being definitely a test starter. But it's great to see that we have created this competition already just after game 1.
So Gatland gave them a 7 out of 10. Do you think that he secretly he may be rating them a little bit higher than that in terms of their first run out, their handling? I mean, they didn't make many mistakes, and I thought that they looked pretty sharp for.
Well, I think a couple of the key silos you have to look at when all's said and done is that they were efficient and they were effective to some degree. I have to agree. I think there would be a wry smile after that performance. You know, clean bill of health, and actually the way that the shape and the fluidity and the cohesion and the way that you could see there was a Gregor Townsend type influence on the way that the ball was transferred. Farrell looked, again, very comfortable in switching, from 12 back into 10. So listen, I'm very encouraged by that opening salvo, really am.
But if you go back to, and we spoke about it before we started the show, you look at that England performance against the All Blacks in the semi-final, and you look at their performance the very next week against the Springboks. You've seen some wonderful players. The moment they get tackled, and they don't expect they're going to get tackled, the way they get tackled, and there's this rush defence that's in their face and consistently in their face, they don't quite look as flash. And I think if there's one thing that Gatland will be desperate for, and the COVID bubbles, bio bubbles, have meant that there's no Springboks, there's no one in that 46 that's playing in their warm-up games. What he loved about the New Zealand tour in 2017 was his blokes got a good hit-out before that first test. They got good hit-outs between the first and the third test as well. They were tested every Wednesday against quality opposition. He said they had to take the tempo down, adjust their game, because it just wasn't what they expected. So that has to just sit slightly uncomfortable with him to think, as good as you guys are and how good you are you going to be able to turn it on in the first 15 when you play a team who can defend, they've kind of won the World Cup on the back of defence, and they've kind of been sitting back in the kraal waiting for you. So they're going to run over every opposition, and everyone is going to look particularly good, and they're going to play at a tempo that they want to. But the moment you're getting knocked back 2-3 meters in the tackle, 12 doesn't quite look as flash next to 13, 10 starts looking around. I think that could count against them, and we'll have a far greater measure of everything after that first test, of just where the Boks are and where the Lions are. And yes, you'll get the combinations going now. You'll kind of see, is this the kind of flow that he wants to play? But I think you'll see the Lions play a lot differently in the test series to what we see now. What he's shown us is there's some beautiful footballers in that team. There's some wonderful class, and it was like men against boys. When they needed to score 7, they scored 7. When they needed to defend for 50 minutes, they wanted to defend for 15 minutes. And there was a funny moment when one of the Lions front rows was adjusting his jock strap or something, and he didn't want to go down in the engagement. And typically, one of the Lions, the South African Lions players in Afrikaans screamed out, "Hulle is bang om te scrum." They scared to scrum. And I think the next one, the guy put the local Lions head up his ass back to Centurion or something like that. So it was like watching an English-speaking school side, who traditionally are very classy and skillful, playing a bit of a boorish Afrikaans side who thinks they're going to have to do it with force, but every time they look up, they're 7 points down because their backs have done a few things. I just felt wonderful to see the Lions express themselves, but I think Gats deep down knows that these are just matches he's got to get out of the way to do that engineering to get to his first test. It's really a 3-match tour.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think the bookies, looking at the odds, have shrunk on the Lions. Some money have come in, smart money maybe have come in on the Lions to back them a bit more after a snapshot. I know one game doesn't make a summer, but it's a body of work for us to look at, and people always jump in with an opinion, and it shapes the betting, and the betting has shrunk for the Lions. And I mean, you've said that Mark's off his tree, picking a 3-0 Lions a Springbok win. And you still
No, I still am. I think even the logic when you look at both squads, and even in a perfect world, and we're in an imperfect situation at the moment with some of the external stresses put on both squads, is that like for like, I think it's very highly competitive, and the fact is that yes, all this tour from the outset, it's all about the 3-test series, and it is geared, and the kind of the social engineering and also the selection engineering is prescribed per game. It has to happen in order. We have to the Lions have to get to a position where tomorrow, again, a new side with a new energy, with the opportunity to create a new footprint, puts pressure on the team, then gets selected against the Bulls, which obviously we hope is going to be a much stronger hit out. And then we have the competitive anxiety within the squad about who gets the selection ahead for the next 2 infill games. But clearly after the Bulls, there's going to be some common sense about who is in great shape, what combinations are best suited for that assault on the first game, which sets the tempo for the test series.
You think that the side that plays on the 17th against the Storm is the test run on 15. There may be 1 or 2 changes on the bench, but you want to give that team a hit out before that first test.
Yeah, by the time you get to Cape Town and that Stormers game, there's a squad of the squad of 35, if still fit and healthy and highly competitive, then it gets kind of curtailed down to the 23, the 25 that are in prime selection position for that first test.
And does it get more difficult in a camp when that starts up?
Well, the thing is, then it relies on the patience and persistence of the individual athlete, because clearly if you've had a game and a half or 2 games and you feel very comfortable in your production and your contribution to the game in the overall aspect of it, you feel that you're in a position of selection. And I think Gatland, as old and as wise as he is, and his experience has taught him, do not discount anybody. So I want to see all 35 of you, just putting your hands up for test selection, because it's going to take 35 to come out at the other end of a three test series, with everybody contributing to get to that kind of victory status. But listen, the games have to happen in order. I can't stress enough that the team that we will see tomorrow, obviously there'll be some differences, and everyone's going to get this kind of game and a half, 2.5 game kind of grace period before Gatland has to sharpen his pencil and sit down with his selection team and go, what is the group? What does the group look like when we come to choosing the test team?
I do feel that if you take the way they played against Japan and the starting 15 against the Lions in Johannesburg, he made 14 changes, but the core of that side was in Jersey training together. So the rhythm was outstanding to have it side together for 3 weeks and for them to play with such fluency. But the side that plays against the Sharks on Wednesday evening is the first time you've got a bit of a mix and match. And I don't know if we're going to quite see the fluency in that first 30, 40 minutes. And that would maybe be more 1 or 2 combinations or individuals that they'd want to see. I still think they'll comfortably beat the Sharks, but I don't quite think we'll see the polish in that team that we've seen in the first 2 teams, and that's just down to preparation, and there's a lot of mixing and matching for this one, where there you could see 2 very definite trains of thought for how he picked that side to play Japan and the side that he picked to play against the Lions.
And I think, Mark, is the key factor there where you say is that Gatland will continually try and push the envelope of developing a team ethos and seeing a team prepare and execute well. But I think that, unfortunately, because of those kind of disruptions and new players coming in, Beard and Navidi, I think we'll see individual performances. We see a little, some brilliance from certain people, but whether it'll be, as you said, this fluid type of cohesion, the rhythm and momentum has to keep building. They have to keep putting pressure on themselves. But the rhythm and momentum in any sport is key, and they just need to build on what Saturday was. Wednesday, taking it into the next game.
And if you look at how he's compensated for Alan Wynne-Jones' injury, when Conor Murray captains him against the Bulls, he'll be the fourth captain in 4 matches for the Lions. So he's shown the world, I've got a leadership group. I don't need one captain to come out there. And it would have been great for him to have had Alan Wynne-Jones there. He put so much faith in him. What he's telling everyone is we're a team that doesn't rely on one individual. We have strong leadership. We have leaders from every country, and he's given them an opportunity. So it's Henderson, it's Murray, it was Stuart Hogg, and obviously Alan Wynne-Jones in that first game. And they all look comfortable leading the team and kind of having that support. What I've enjoyed just from the bits and bobs we see, because no one's close to the team because of the bio bubble, but there really does seem to be this camaraderie and this coming together, and it is they've embraced it as being something unique and something different as opposed to a burden.
I think it would be the key tenet that they discussed before they left the shores, is that how we react to the constraints within the COVID bubble is going to be the key determining factor on our success of this tour. And I think they put that right at the apex. And you can see that in their body language, in their expression, and the tidbits of information that we can glean from some of the social media outlets. So, it is still very early days in this tour. Sanity has to prevail, from a protective perspective, that they all have to stay fit and hungry. But I think the key messaging from Gatland remains relevant. And I actually think the Alan Wynne-Jones story of he's going to make a miraculous recovery and maybe join the tour is a little bit of a distraction at the moment. If that does happen, that's going to be a bonus, because from his own leadership perspective, and maybe by then the Lions may need a boost from physical personnel. But I think at this moment in time, it needs to be put in the back, on the back burner, because there's still plenty of opportunity ahead for all considering selection.
I just want to ask Scott a thing. We've seen Dan Biggar play with the Irish Centres, and then we've seen Finn Russell play with Owen Farrell at 12. Scrap that one for the Test series?
Oh, I think there was a lot of blowback about that. Not because it just didn't work. I just think it's something that needs to be parked straight away, because we're talking about, we're comparing apples with oranges at the moment. So I think that I have a little concern, not about Biggar and his disposition. I mean, I think he's been one of the most consistent international performers. His application and his game craft has continued to evolve and continue to improve as a developing number 10. And he's been around a long time. He knows how to win football games. The fact is that he had a cortisone in his knee injury, which I think even at the late in the season, when you're carrying bumps and something, that's a radical issue to undertake. And the same with kind of Anthony Watson with his turf toe injury. So listen, I think there's a few. I'm just a little concerned that we don't overexpose Biggar at this early juncture, and because I think Gatland knows exactly what his game's about, where he sits mentally, where he sits emotionally, and what he brings to the table. And I think that's where maybe Farrell needs more game time, not because of lack of experience, but just needs to be on the field, getting it going.
Do you see Farrell's role potentially in the 3-Test series being off the bench and providing cover for 10 and 12 and kind of being a Mornestein type insurance policy? If you're going with a Biggar at 10, you're going with a combination of the two Irish centres.
I think we still got plenty of football to go to determine that factor. There's no doubt that Farrell's ability also is that, you know, we can see him at first centre, which is going to be a critical position anyway. And having two experienced players in the test arena at 10 and 12 like Biggar and Farrell is only going to be of strength. But we've yet to make our own minds up about that. I think it's still a fluid situation. I still wouldn't discount Chris Harris in that midfield mix. But certainly, I think, given the opening game against Japan that Bundyaki and the Irish centre, Robbie Henshaw, still probably take primacy for now. But that's what's so interesting about this game on Wednesday, the game Saturday, and what happens next week from a fixture perspective, is that we still got plenty of opportunity to understand who are the best, you know, what is the best combination going into this first test. And it will change out of the course of the test series, but it depends. I mean, all roads lead to Rome. That first test is so key. Got to get a great start, you know, got to bag that one. Puts the pressure back on the opposition. So that's what I mean by selection engineering now, is that Gatland's pretty much game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4. I think he probably knows exactly who he wants in which position, so that by the Stormers game, you know, 85-95% of the team will be a test kind of team, and that's the way I see it.
And he'll be comforted because England are playing at the moment, Wales are playing, Ireland are playing, Scotland will be playing in test matches back home. So if he does have injuries, he's got blokes who are fit, conditioned, and actually are playing test rugby at the moment. So the depth in this touring squad and the depth at home is just, it's probably the strongest I've seen ever in terms of Northern Hemisphere rugby when it comes to United Kingdom.
And the last thing I'll say about Gatland, he thrives on having competition. He thrives on, you know, demanding competition within his squad, and that's what we're seeing, is a very young, very fit, very mobile, agile, you know, a team that really can play a full court press, but they know that they have to be strong defensively, and that mentality of, you know, meeting fire with fire is never going to escape them, because come test time you have to stand up, you have to be counted, and you have to not give an inch.
Well, guys, some great insight there, and thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. I hope, no doubt the people far more wiser for listening to this. Cheers, lads.
Thanks, Scotty.